Welcome to the new year, at least on the liturgical calendar, Advent that is. And this is the first Sunday of Advent and a reflection on the Revised Common Lectionary Readings, as well as a poem by Jane Kenyon, Let Evening Come. My name is Cameron Miller, and this is Trinity Place. Her poem ends with this: Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let evening come. Thank you, Jane Kenyon. Let it come, let evening come. Now, in the popular imagination, the events that Jeremiah and Jesus are talking about are the end of time, or apocalypse, or rapture, or even the eschaton. It's invariably imagined as violent. It is also imagined by many Christians who still expect such an event to take place to be the defining moment that finally rewards the faithful and punishes the faithless. It somehow gets focused on threatening images of torturous pain and punishment inflicted by God, the God of an abacus justice. You know, sitting in a cosmic cave, tabulating each human being's goods and bads to determine a happy salvation or an eternal agony. Why is it, really, why is it that we think the God who created such magnificent beauty and such exquisite interlocking biomes of life here and likely all the way across the cosmos is an abusive parent? Better yet, why do we hang on to that notion? Frankly, if I had to imagine an end time at all, I would prefer to think of it as the end of time as a birth, as in the baby's first gasp of bountiful air. I could go with that image, but truly I don't really expect God to suddenly put a zipper on it and zip us out of existence. Not God, anyway. I do fully expect that one day the earth will be a cinder cooling off in space even before our sun dies, because all stars finally do. But of that day and hour, no one knows. Given the promise of grace and the consistent promise of love and the echoing whisper of mercy that comes cascading out of the Bible, both in the Hebrew and Christian texts, I simply cannot fathom God zapping the earth and most of the people on it like the evil empire's Death Star in the Star Wars movies. Now, in the next few weeks of Advent, we will hear some of that violent end-time imagery, and it is not difficult to figure out why ancient people expected such things. Think about it. When you have so little knowledge about the cosmic environment and a tragically narrow sphere of control, a sudden apocalypse would be consistent with the rest of your experience. Those ancients didn't get much warning, for example, about a storm like the whopper rains we got this fall. Even though our weather forecasting leaves a lot to be desired, our satellites watch weather forming and sweeping across the mountains and the Great Plains and the Midwestern belly of the nation before ever crossing this threshold, at least where I am in the eastern seaboard, before crossing our threshold. But for those ancient storms just hit, bam. So did the Roman army just arrive without warning. The cohorts raped wives and daughters and cut off the hands of sons and took bread and flour and goats and just appeared. Bandits attacked too. They appeared without warning. The lion who ate the neighbor. The famine that swept the land, the disease that began with a rash and ended with internal bleeding and finally gushing blood from every orifice. Anything and everything just appeared and just arrived without warning. Our existence, yours and mine, obscures so much of the life context of the people before us. It is said that for all of us, really, that we have a better quality of life than Henry VIII did. Think about that. We know that death and tragedy can arrive at any moment, but our lives are generally so sanitized and so anesthetized and so protected that we create violence in our movies and in our television and video games just to scare ourselves. Can you imagine that those ancient people who lived with that kind of minute-by-minute insecurity would then choose to watch a Stephen King movie? I don't think so. No wonder those ancients expected the end to come with such a rush of divine violence. That was their everyday experience. Insecurity, grim violence, and randomness. If we can look around at the world while standing in their shoes, we can see that if God didn't make things right with the world and finally reverse the fortunes that they had been losing out on their whole lives, who would and who could? God must make things right at the end, they thought. Or what is this about anyway? So I can see why those ancients envisioned apocalypse at the end of time, almost courted such a thing to bring justice, or in their mind, justice to the end. But I cannot for the life of me understand how modern recipients of consumeristic privilege also hope and pray for it. But some of them do. But I don't have to understand. I'm sticking with Jeremiah. The days are coming, he said, when I will fulfill the promise, speaking for God. And to me, that means there's a baby coming any minute, next month or tomorrow, and nobody knows his or her name. That's the kind of waiting this month of Advent invites us into. A gaggle of hopeful, happy, slightly anxious friends and family watching the maternal belly expand and waiting. But it's not our belly, not even our baby. But we know that when it comes, everything's going to be different. And we don't even know its name. And right there is the itch I want to scratch today, maybe all month. It's not our belly. It's not our baby. And we know that when it comes, everything's going to be different. And still, we don't even know its name. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let evening come. Let evening come. That's how I envision Advent, a time of waiting without knowing, a time to recollect and to remember that the very best gifts we ever received were the ones we didn't even know to ask for. Let it come as it will, and don't be afraid. God does not leave us comfortless, so let evening come. Peace be with you.